My book is about what can go wrong unexpectedly in complex technological systems. And if it goes wrong in a software that a business sells, it may be a problem for a couple of days. If it goes wrong in the nuclear command and control system, you may lose a city, you may lose a state. There could be a nuclear war. And this is just, the book is an exploration of how very brilliant engineers try to solve some of these technical issues and save the lives of millions.
And I'm a big fan of your work, because as I've told you a lot over the last day or so.
It's really nice.
But I was really surprised how much there are so many lessons about the world of technology and what technology means in the world into which it's implemented, and how many random guesses there are hoping that something will work. There was a lot of that when the bomb was first invented.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bomb, the atomic bomb was invented with slide rules. You think about how tiny the computing power the Manhattan Project scientists had. And supercomputers were, basically invented for the weapons program, but still, there was a lot of guesswork, and as a result, there were all kinds of calculations that were wrong. When we detonated the first deliverable hydrogen bomb, they were wrong by a factor of 3. The explosion was 3 times more powerful than they had estimated, and they were worried that it was going completely out of control. So when you look at the nuclear weapons program, particularly in the late 40s, 50s, into the early 60s, you had the most brilliant technical minds probably in the world, and yet there were still unexpected things that happened. There were still mistakes. There were competing design goals with nuclear weapons.
Which we see in all kinds of technology things now, including around the nuclear program.
So there were, extraordinary compromises that had to be made one way or another in designing these weapons. The book is not just a critique of technology. Some of the engineers in the book are the heroes of the book. But if there's a moral in it, it's about being ambitious but having humility at the same time about what you design. And there's a phrase that was used by early software designers that I use in the book, which was the Titanic effect. And what that meant is the safer you believe your system to be, the more dangerous it's becoming. So there needs to be a sort of a constant vigilance. And the greatest danger, I think, with our nuclear weapons complex today, and I would argue with many other complex technological systems, is complacency. A sense that it's working just fine, all is well. And it's when you get that attitude that the big problems arise.
There's also this sort of this notion of not just about the bombs, but about the systems around it and the legacy computing systems. You tell this amazing story about a nuclear bomb that nearly went off in Arkansas in 1980, and in great detail in Damascus, Arkansas, you tell the story of how these old systems, the people who were maintaining those systems with the simplest of tools, didn't have the control that the most modern technology, even of that day, would have provided.
And it's a real danger. I mean, we allowed our military in many ways to become obsolete after the Vietnam War. And unfortunately, there's a lot of resonance today. The Minuteman III missiles, which are our principal land-based missiles, were supposed to be retired in the early 1980s. When you go into the launch complexes for those missiles, they have computers that date back 25, 30 years, and software that has been updated but has layers and layers of additions on top of it, and who knows what sort of glitches are there. So, people can come away from the book with different attitudes towards this technology, different attitudes towards nuclear weapons, but I think we can all agree if you're going to have these things, you need to spend to maintain them properly and train the people who are maintaining them.
Well, that's happening this year. President Obama is spending $10 billion more than any president has spent since the 1950s, since before the 1950s, on the nuclear weapons program. Does that technological spend, because it's chiefly technology spend and some real estate, some construction, does that make the bombs a lot safer, or is that just increasing the sort of capacity of the arsenal?
It depends. Right now, I think that we're not spending what we need to spend to make the bombs safer. What we really need to be spending is on the nuclear command and control system, the basic infrastructure, wiring, cables, computers, software, training. And a lot of that spend that you just described is laying the groundwork for new weapon systems, some of which we may need, some of which we don't. And I think we really need a debate on our nuclear weapons complex, because right now we're scheduled to spend $1 trillion over the next 30 years.
$1 trillion?
$1 trillion. And we really need to talk about, well, what are we going to get for that money? How much do we need? What do we need to defend this country properly? And for the last 25 to 30 years, this whole issue has been off the radar. People assumed when the Cold War ended that the danger and the need for nuclear weapons went away, and it hasn't. And so one of the aims of my book is to just bring this whole world back into the spotlight.